will be able to write directly on the text if you want suggestions, commentaries, etc., to help us to improve this text. So we will have first of all the speakers, and then I will ask you again to speak about, to think about what theme can you interest you, and we will spread in the different groups. But for now, we will start with the first speakers. So Didier, I think that you made the introduction.
Yeah, well, actually, no real introduction, just saying welcome, Indra, to speak about the hard and soft power of technology to face the crisis. And on the chat, you have the bio or some information more about Indra. Welcome, Indra.
Thank you very much. And can I just confirm that I've got until 16, GMT, that is 16:25, 15 minutes, is that correct?
Normally you have 15 minutes. It's even better if you can leave 2 minutes for questions, but if not possible, you will answer in the chat. Yes.
Okay, I'll just talk as fast as I can. So I'll just share my screen. Okay, here we go.
Good.
So that is me. I'm Indra Adnan, and I'm the co-initiator of a new political platform. Well, not so new anymore. We've been here for 4 years now, just entering into our 5th year. And I'm also a psychotherapist and a journalist. And I think the relationship between psychotherapy and journalism will become clear in this look at the hard and soft power of technology to help us face the crises that we're in. But I want to begin on a personal note, and that's not just personal to me, but personal to all of us. There is no sustainability of this planet unless we can offer sustainability for the person, for the individual. And that for us to ignore that is to invite sabotage. We started the Alternative just really a week before Brexit. And the thing that triggered us into knowing we had to create a new political system was the point at which one of our MPs, Joe Cox, was murdered. And this seemed to be very much the result of a political system that was really aimed at dividing people against each other, using the tools of mental manipulation. And so that's very much the thing that we'll be looking at today. So how we see it is that in order for us to be able to face and transform the crisis that we're in, we have to always remember this as an interdependent triple crisis of human agency, shared agency, and then the impact upon the planet that we're living on. So of course, we're all familiar with the idea that our physical environment is unsustainable. But how many of us are really self-consciously trying to manage the effect that that has on our mental health? How much are we consciously creating a new narrative or a new story within which we can imagine succeeding in our endeavors to face the crisis? Not only are we collectively engaged by the growth economy that is destroying our planet, but we also are living in a very determined way within a social and mainstream media business model that takes control of our minds and wants to addict us. So if any of you are not really thinking very much about this, please consider that as human beings with emotional needs that need to get met every day, this is simply our human condition. The advertising industry, the media industry, the social media industry is geared towards meeting our emotional needs through selling a product. So that we've absolutely been constructed, we have a social construction in which we believe we're getting our emotional needs met by consuming stuff. And that's what keeps us on the hamster wheel. We never have time. We don't have space for ourselves. And if we don't have space or time, we cannot really use our imagination. So many of you, I'm sure, have recently seen the documentary, The Social Dilemma. And in The Social Dilemma, a lot of these subjects are raised. And people have learned to train their anger or train their, their energies on entities like Facebook or Twitter. You know, they're thinking that social media is the thing that has manipulated us. But I'd like to remind us all that there isn't one of us that hasn't all of our lives. There's none of us old enough here today to not have lived a complete life within the manipulation of soft power, which has created for each of us within our own countries, but also globally, a great dream within which we exist. So the Americans live within the dream of the American dream. In the UK, we live within the Great British Dream. In China, they saw how successfully that worked for bringing a country together, and they are actively creating all the time the Chinese dream. We have to be very aware of this constant construction of the mental space within which we are trying to create something quite new, which has completely different results. Unless we can depart in some way from the dream that has been constructed for us through our culture, through our media, through our values, through our education system, if we cannot objectively see that dream and try to move away from it, we won't be able to recreate something and have completely new outcomes. The good news is that we're, as well as having emotional needs, we are actually designed as human beings to have emotional capacities as well. So we have all of these great wiring systems. We are, in fact, the best technology that exists for overcoming our problems. The only thing that we lack really is the time and space to use all of this incredible technology that we have, the complex memory, the ability to imagine, the ability to observe the self, to know, and the ability to dream. All of these things make us the most incredible sophisticated piece of technology that could be imagined, in fact. So if I'm looking now at the plethora of new pieces of technology whose particular aim is to recognize us now as complex human beings who are bio-psychosocial, spiritual entities capable of doing so much, but don't have the technology or the space and the connectivity to allow that. All of these new bits of technology are trying to create that space for us. And yet at the moment, they're only being very, very superficially taken up. So the work, for example, that Dave Snowden's is doing in Wales with the Sense Maker is ways of inviting people into a relationship with an issue or a policy to see that their ideas are not simply black or white. There's no such thing really as a left response or a right response. There's always complex mixes in the potentiality for us to respond. So SenseMaker is a very interesting piece of tech that is allowing us to reflect back to ourselves that we are complex human beings. Polis is also another form of doing that. So what Polis has achieved through its use in places like Taiwan, for example, but also being used all over Europe now as a political tool for showing people themselves back to themselves, that where they might have thought there was a division between left and right, it's very rarely the truth of the matter. We are complex mixes of both left and right ideas. Zoom has obviously been a very important piece of technology over this COVID period. It has brought us not only into direct relationship with each other in a much more intense way than was ever possible before, but it has actually created quite safe places for quite intense exchanges that even people who could meet next door or could meet in the street, or could have met at the pub, are suddenly having for the first time in a Zoom room that they never had before. At the same time, slightly older pieces of technology that have connected us, such as WhatsApp groups, for example, have now become the new forefront and the very place that the economy and the government is trying to interfere with our connectedness. So we are almost picking up one piece of technology and escaping it to create the next one. And that's probably where Clubhouse comes in as a most recent phenomenon for people having conversations and moving into some sort of connectedness with each other. But what a strange phenomenon that is, to literally be feeling as if you're at a party where people are prepared to perhaps listen, but not listen to you. It's always a crowded space, but there's no record at all of what you said. So what can you do with that conversation? If we are successful in bringing these new bits of technology together, which really, as I say, recognize our complex selves, our need to take back our minds and to have meetings of minds, then we will again become people who are capable of not only talking about our own development, our own mental health, our own mental flourishing, but we will, without disconnect, be able to talk about our community, and in fact be able to also have a global conversation. And I, for one, have been part of many more diverse global conversations over COVID than ever before. The most important thing that can be landed by this kind of technology is to get rid of the myth that you are either an individual or you're a social person or you're a global person, as if these are three categories. What the tech is showing us all the time is that any one of us can be personal or social or global simply by changing the bit of software that we're using. So just to go back quickly to our political platform, these are the 6 ways into the question of how do we face the crises. But I would say that probably the biggest one that is relative here, which is where soft power comes in, is how do we tell the story of all of this development and tell a new story about tech as in fact being the very space and being the very room within which we can change our own agency. And right at the heart of this is the concept of what we call cosmo-local citizens action networks. These are containers within communities in which people can meet each other, but then meet other cans and have a much bigger shared conversation. This is part of the new political system that we are now designing. You can hear more about that if you visit our platform. But just to go back to the very early slide of how this connection of the I to the we to the world is absolutely core to our agency becoming stronger collectively. Here are some of the projects that are appearing within the Alternatives new mediaverse. I'm sure most of those are familiar to you, but please do come and explore when you have the time. And that is basically me. I can't see the clock, so I have no idea whether I took 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15, but that's me signing out now for any questions.
Well, perfect. It was precisely the time that was asked. Thank you very much. And so now we have space for 2 questions. I see one question coming from David Wood. If human emotional capacity is, as stated, the most powerful technology, should society be putting lots more focus on helping people to develop and manage the emotional capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it's like a waking upness to the human potential. One of the most painful experiences that I see happening everywhere as this period, we've been in this 20-year revolution where the technology is basically allowing us to share information that we didn't have before. And it's happening on a number of different levels. Obviously, just the research or just the information that we can make new projects with is one thing. But how the new technology shows us back to ourselves. What Facebook has achieved in helping each one of us become the curators and the developers of our own avatar, if you like, our own public space persona, has really seriously developed us and enhanced our idea of what it means to be human in the physical space and human in the virtual space. But when you start to wake up to, when you're reading all of this information and learn, and you start to wake up to what a waste your life has been until now, how much you've been as simply a piece of machinery that has kept this growth economy going, that has in fact destroyed the planet. It's that waking up process that so many people are going through now needs to be carefully held at a community level. And it's very important that even as we're learning about our emotions, we must be learning about our capacities and re-understanding ourselves as the answer to the problems that we face. If we're not learning this and we don't have the time for this, then we'll simply be swept up into another idea or another policy led by people who simply have more power and agency than we do.
Thank you, Indra. There are no questions at the moment in the chat, so but if somebody has a question, put it now, and Indra will probably answer on the chat. And now, José Luis Cordero will speak about energularity and the future of humankind. Hello, José.